The sun was shining like it had a personal vendetta against anything imperfect in Sunridge Estates. Every lawn was shaved to exactly 2 inches. Not one blade more, not one less, because the HOA handbook said so, and Karen Whitaker, our beloved president, made damn sure everyone remembered it. Welcome to the American dream, folks. White picket fences, smiling neighbors, and a rule book thicker than the Bible that turned paradise into a surveillance state. I, Laura Bennett, 35, financial analyst by day and reluctant rule follower by neighborhood decree, had moved here 6 months ago thinking the quiet cul-de-sac would be my fresh start after the divorce. Big mistake. Huge. Karen was the queen bee, 50-ish, always in pastel cardigans and a pearl necklace that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. She'd greet you at the monthly meetings with that saccharine smile, hands clasped like a Sunday school teacher, cooing about community harmony and protecting property values for all of us. But everyone knew, or at least suspected, that the only property she was really protecting was her own sprawling McMansion at the end of Maple Lane. The one with the unauthorized fountain that somehow never got fined. The one with the rose garden that looked suspiciously like the one she just slapped me with a violation for. It started small, the way these things always do in HOA hell. I'd planted a modest row of red roses along my front walk. Nothing flashy, just something to break up the sea of identical beige siding and perfectly edged grass. 2 days later, a crisp white envelope appeared in my mailbox. Official HOA letterhead. Unauthorized landscaping violation. Presidential suite. Rose upgrade fee. $480. The wording alone was hilarious if it wasn't infuriating. Presidential suite? On my 2-foot flower bed? I stared at the bill, the same way I stare at spreadsheets when a decimal point decides to lie. Something didn't add up. The fine referenced contractor invoice 7742B from Evergreen Landscaping, the HOA's exclusive approved vendor. And right there in the fine print, suite upgrade to premium hybrid roses per board approval. I didn't storm the next meeting. I didn't scream on the Nextdoor app like half the neighborhood would have. I'm not that kind of woman. I sat on my kitchen island, coffee cooling beside my laptop, and did what I do best. I looked for the anomaly. Because in my world, numbers don't lie. People do. The first crack appeared when I decided to call Evergreen myself. Not to yell, God no. Just to clarify the charge, as any responsible homeowner would. The line rang twice before a polished voice answered. Evergreen Landscaping, this is Jessica speaking. How may I help you? Her tone was all sunshine and customer service until I gave her the folio number in my name. Then came the laugh. Soft. Breathless. The kind of laugh that belongs in a dimly lit wine bar, not a billing department on a Tuesday morning. Oh, Laura. Of course Karen said you'd call about that. She's so funny sometimes. Funny. The word landed like a slap. Nobody calls a $480 fine funny unless they're in on the joke. My fingers froze on the keyboard. I kept my voice level. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? There seems to be a discrepancy on the invoice. Jessica didn't miss a beat. Just tell her the roses were absolutely beautiful. She really shouldn't have. The upgrade was supposed to be our little secret. But you know Karen, always thinking of the neighborhood and herself. The line went dead in my ear after I muttered a polite thank you. I sat there in the silence of my too quiet kitchen, the bill glowing on the screen like evidence at a crime scene. Roses. Upgrade. Karen. The same Karen who'd publicly shamed me at last month's meeting for disrupting aesthetic harmony with my gaudy flowers. The same Karen who'd smile while the board voted to fine me on the spot. That $480 wasn't a fine. It was a loose thread. And I, Laura Bennett, the woman who once caught a 6-figure embezzlement scheme at my old firm by spotting a single mismatched receipt, knew exactly what happened when you pulled. The neighborhood gossip mill kicked into high gear faster than you could say HOA violation. By Wednesday morning, every lawn sign and porch conversation had the same headline. Laura Bennett's at it again. Can't even follow simple rose rules. Brenda from 2 doors down gave me that pitying head tilt at the mailbox. Honey, just rip them out. Karen's only trying to help us all keep values up. I smiled tightly. The same tight smile I perfected in boardrooms when executives tried to gaslight me with bad data. Help. Sure. Because nothing says community spirit like weaponizing flowers against a single mom trying to make her yard pretty. I didn't rip them out. Instead, I opened my laptop and did the one thing Karen never expected. I started digging. Sunridge Estates, HO, it wasn't some mom-and-pop volunteer outfit. We had a management company, quarterly audits, supposedly, and a share drive where every invoice lived. As the only resident with actual forensic accounting experience, something I casually mentioned at the welcome potluck 6 months ago, I've been politely asked to look over the books last quarter. Karen had beamed. We're so lucky to have a professional like you, Laura. Translation: free labor. That night, while the rest of the cul-de-sac slept under their perfectly compliant porch lights, I logged in. The $480 charge was right there, filed under landscaping enhancements, phase 3, but the attached receipt, doctored. The original PDF, the one Jessica had accidentally left a trail to in the vendor portal, showed King's Suite upgrade, premium roses for personal residence, 2 occupants. 2 occupants. Karen's address. And the second name on the invoice, J. Howell. Jessica Howell, Senior Account Manager at Evergreen. The woman whose laugh still echoed in my head. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the screen painting my face blue. Fact 1. Karen had the board approve a bogus community upgrade. Fact 2. She'd rerouted HOA dues to her own backyard. Fact 3. She tried to pin the fine on me to cover her tracks. The woman who preached transparency for the greater good was running a personal slush fund disguised as neighborhood beautification. And she'd made the fatal error of thinking I was just another compliant homeowner she could bully into silence. The whispers grew louder by Friday. At the community mailbox cluster, I overheard 2 of Karen's loyal cardigan brigade. Can you believe it? Laura's already on her 2nd violation this year. Karen says if we don't enforce the rules, property values will tank. I kept walking, heels clicking on the sidewalk like a metronome, counting down to something they couldn't see coming. My heart wasn't racing. It was calculating. Because silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of the blade being sharpened. That weekend I played the part perfectly. I smiled at the HOA newsletter drop-off. I nodded when Karen waved from her golf cart, clipboard in hand, pearls gleaming. Everything okay with that little rose issue, dear? She chirped, all concern and condescension. I tilted my head. Just clarifying with the vendor, Karen. You know how I am with numbers. Her smile faltered for half a second, the first crack in the porcelain mask. She recovered instantly. Of course, we're all about due diligence here. Due diligence. The phrase tasted like irony dipped in saccharin. Inside my house, the real work began. I pulled every invoice from the last 18 months. Cross-referenced them against board minutes, vendor contracts, even the petty cash log. The pattern emerged like blood in water. Community event upgrades that somehow always ended up at Karen's address. Executive travel reimbursements for non-existent conferences. Receipts from resorts in Napa while she claimed to be scouting best practices. And the gifts. Oh, the gifts. Pearl necklaces, custom landscaping, even that ridiculous fountain. All funneled through Evergreen because Jessica Howell wasn't just the account manager. She was the other name on every upgraded invoice. The woman who'd laughed like they shared secrets. By Sunday night, I had a folder on an encrypted drive titled Q3 Compliance Review. Inside, tables in red and black, side-by-side comparisons, embedded screenshots, time-stamped Instagram posts from Jessica's public account showing her wearing the exact client appreciation necklace Karen had expensed as HOA morale booster. It was beautiful, cold, irrefutable. The kind of document that doesn't just expose fraud, it humiliates the fraudster in front of the people who trusted her. I didn't confront Karen. I didn't post on the neighborhood Facebook page. I simply hit reply on the original fine email and added one line before forwarding it to the entire board. requesting verification of room occupancy and purpose before processing reimbursement per HOA bylaw section 4.2. Innocent. Professional. A loaded gun wrapped in corporate politeness. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday in the community clubhouse, the same sterile beige room where Karen had once made me stand up and explain my rose choices like a criminal in the dock. I arrived early, laptop in hand, projector ready. The air smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Karen swept in wearing her signature power pastel outfit, pearls swinging like a noose she didn't know was tightening. She took her seat at the head of the table, gavel in hand, and beamed at the 7 other board members. Let's get started, everyone. First order of business. That unfortunate Rose situation with MS. Bennett. I'm sure we can resolve it quickly for the good of the community. I opened my laptop. The first slide was innocent enough. Q3 expense protocol overview. I walked them through charts, guidelines, the boring stuff. Karen relaxed, scrolling on her phone under the table. The others nodded along, half asleep. Then I clicked. Slide title in bold. Case study. Landscaping enhancement invoice 7742B. Karen's head snapped up. The room went still. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. As requested, I've reviewed the $480 charge submitted for board approval. The original vendor folio shows the expense was for premium Rose upgrade. Personal residence, 2 occupants. Guest name, K. Whitaker. Second occupant, J. Howell. The projector hummed. The screen filled with the unaltered invoice. Then the Instagram post. Then the bank transfer records showing HOA dues flowing straight into Karen's personal landscaping account. I kept going, voice steady as a spreadsheet. Further review reveals 17 similar line items over 18 months, totaling $28,400. All approved under community beautification, all benefiting one address. Karen's face drained of color. The pearls suddenly looked cheap. She opened her mouth, that practice smile ready to spin some story about miscommunication and for the children, but I clicked again. The final slide, a side-by-side of her own backyard fountain next to the community project receipt. Caption from Jessica's account. Some people just know how to make a girl feel special. The silence was deafening. One board member actually gasped. Another pushed his chair back like the fraud might be contagious. Karen's hands trembled on the gavel. This is a misunderstanding, she stammered. Laura, dear, you're taking this all out of context. We were simply... I met her eyes across the table. The same eyes that had smiled while fining me for flowers. Context is everything, Karen. And the context is that you used neighborhood dues to fund your personal upgrades and extracurricular activities, while publicly shaming residents for the same aesthetic violations you committed in secret. The gavel never came down. The meeting dissolved into chaos, questions, accusations, phones coming out to record. Karen stood up, pearls swinging wildly, and tried one last Hail Mary. I have always acted in the best interest of Sunridge Estates. This is a witch hunt. I closed my laptop with a soft click. No, Karen. This is compliance. By the time the emergency vote was called, 3 board members had already resigned. Karen was removed as president effective immediately. The management company was notified. The district attorney's office received an anonymous tip with my neatly compiled folder attached. As I walked out of the clubhouse into the golden evening light, I heard her voice cracking behind me. Not the sweet president voice, but the raw, ugly sound of a tyrant who'd finally met someone who could read her numbers better than she could spin them. The roses in my yard were still blooming. They looked even prettier now. The fallout hit Sunridge Estates like a perfectly executed audit. Swift, merciless, and impossible to ignore. By Wednesday morning, the neighborhood chat was exploding. Karen Whitaker removed? What about the fountain? Is the HOA going bankrupt because of her? I sipped my coffee on the porch, watching the drama unfold from my perfectly compliant 2-inch lawn. No one knocked on my door. No one apologized. They were too busy rewriting history in real time, pretending they'd always suspected something. Karen's McMansion light stayed on all night. I could see the silhouette pacing behind the curtains. The same woman who'd once lectured me on aesthetic harmony, now watching her empire of petty rules crumble. The board had frozen all her access to the shared drive within hours. The management company sent a terse email, all pending reimbursements under review. Translation: your personal rose garden is now community property until proven otherwise. I didn't gloat. I simply continued my morning routine. Work emails, gym, the quiet life I'd built before Karen decided I was her next victim. But inside, the cold satisfaction was building. Because this wasn't just about one $480 fine. This was about every homeowner who'd ever been fined for the wrong shade of beige. Every family threatened with liens over holiday lights left up one day too long. Every single mom like me who'd been publicly shamed for daring to plant something that didn't match the handbook. Thursday brought the first real confrontation. I was at the community mailbox when Karen's golf cart screeched to a halt. She looked like she hadn't slept, cardigan wrinkled, pearls missing, makeup applied with shaking hands. "Laura," she hissed, voice low enough that the two other residents suddenly found their mail fascinating. "You think you're clever? You have no idea what you've started. The entire board is in chaos because of your little vendetta." I sorted through my junk mail without looking up. "Vendetta? I just forwarded an invoice, Karen. The same way you asked me to handle the landscaping charge. Remember? You called it my superpower." I finally met her eyes. The smugness was gone. In its place was pure animal panic. Funny how the numbers don't lie when someone actually looks at them. She stepped closer, perfume cloying. "I built this community. I kept property values up. You're just a bitter divorced woman who can't follow simple rules. No one will believe you." I smiled, the same thin, professional smile I'd given her the day she fined me. "They already do. Check the board minutes. Or better yet, check your bank account. The one that's about to get a very official subpoena." She recoiled like I'd slapped her. The golf cart sputtered away, leaving tire marks on the pristine sidewalk. Behind me, I heard one of the neighbors whisper, "Holy crap, did you see that?" The tide was turning. Slowly. Deliciously. That night, I expanded the folder. More evidence poured in once the management company started cooperating. Scared of liability, they opened every file. Fake travel claims for HOA leadership summits that were actually couples' weekends with Jessica at Napa resorts. Contractor bids inflated by 30%. Kickbacks funneled back to Karen's personal account. Even the Halloween decoration policy she'd enforced so viciously, only 2 weeks, or fines apply, had been used to pressure residents into donating to her community fund that somehow always ended up buying her new patio furniture. I worked until 3 a.m., coffee long cold, the encrypted drive growing heavier with every new nail in the coffin. Revenge wasn't loud, screaming matches or viral TikToks. It was this, tables in red ink, timestamps, bank statements. It was making sure that when Karen fell, she fell so hard the entire neighborhood felt the impact and remembered who had warned them all along. Friday morning, the official email went out. Special board meeting, emergency session, mandatory attendance. Topic, governance review. No one missed it. The clubhouse was packed, folding chairs dragged in from every garage, people standing along the walls. Karen arrived last, head high, pearls back in place like armor. She took the head seat out of habit until someone cleared their throat. She moved. The power shift was visible. I sat in the front row, laptop ready. When the new interim president, old Mr. Hargrove from the end of the street, a retired judge who'd never liked Karen's style, called the meeting to order, he didn't waste time. MS. Bennett has provided documentation of serious financial irregularities. We'll let the facts speak. I stood. No theatrics. Just the projector humming to life. Slide after slide. The room gasped at the Napa receipts. Murmurs turned to outrage at the kickback spreadsheets. Karen's face went from defensive pink to corpse white. When I reached the final slide, her own Instagram post from Jessica's account, Tagged, thanks to my favorite president for the best community upgrades ever. She actually stood up and tried to unplug the projector. Enough, she shouted, voice cracking. This is harassment. I've given years to this neighborhood. Mr. Hargrove's gavel came down hard. Sit down, Karen, or we'll have security escort you. The DA's office is already reviewing the files. The vote was unanimous. Karen Whitaker was removed from the board permanently. All her decisions from the last 2 years were to be re-audited. Her home would be assessed for improper use of HOA funds. The roses in my yard, officially approved as a community pilot project. The petty tyrants in pastel cardigans suddenly couldn't look me in the eye. As the meeting broke up, people I barely knew came up to shake my hand. Thank you, one woman whispered, eyes wet. My husband almost lost his job because she fined us for the wrong flag angle. You just saved us all. I didn't say much. Just nodded. Because this wasn't about thanks. It was about the quiet, crystalline moment when the woman who thought she owned the rules finally learned that the rules apply to her too. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in suburban schadenfreude. Karen's McMansion went on the market within 10 days. Motivated seller, the listing said, but everyone knew the real motivation was the mounting legal bills and the neighbors who now crossed the street when they saw her coming. The fountain was drained. The premium roses were ripped out by the new landscaping crew, the one without Jessica Howell's phone number on speed dial. Sunridge Estates breathed a little easier, even if the grass was still exactly 2 inches. I didn't bask. I went back to my spreadsheets at work, my quiet porch evenings, my life. But the neighborhood had changed. The Nextdoor app, once a cesspool of Karen's daily violation reports, suddenly filled with grateful posts. Thank you to Laura for standing up. Who knew our HOA could actually be fair? People started planting whatever flowers they wanted. Halloween lights stayed up an extra week without fines. The tyranny of perfection had cracked, and the fracture lines were beautiful. Then came the real test. The annual board elections. Mr. Hargrove announced he was stepping down, too old for this nonsense, and the position of president was wide open. 3 candidates threw their hats in, a retired accountant who promised fiscal responsibility, a soccer mom who wanted more family events, and me. I hadn't planned it. But when residents started knocking on my door, Laura, you're the only one who actually understands the books. You saved us from her. Please run. I realized the numbers were pointing in one direction. Election night was held in the same clubhouse where Karen had once ruled. The room was packed again, but the energy was different. Hopeful. Almost giddy. Karen showed up anyway. Pearls polished, smile glued on like nothing had happened. She sat in the back row, arms crossed, glaring daggers at me as I took the podium for my short speech. I'm not here to make friends, I said simply. I'm here to make sure the rules apply to everyone equally. No more secret upgrades. No more weaponized fines. Just fair, transparent governance. Because this neighborhood belongs to all of us, not one person's ego. The applause was thunderous. Karen's face twisted. When the votes were tallied, I won by a landslide. President Laura Bennett. The woman who'd been fined for roses was now the one writing the rule book. The first official act of my presidency was simple. I called a special meeting and presented the full audit report, the one I'd kept refining. Every dollar Karen had siphoned. Every kickback. Every lie. The new board voted unanimously to pursue full restitution and support the DA's case. Karen sat in the audience again, smaller somehow, the pearls looking like cheap plastic under the fluorescent lights. After the meeting, she cornered me in the parking lot. No golf cart this time. Just her walking alone, shoulders slumped. You think you've won, she spat, voice low and venomous. You have no idea what power really is. I built this place. People respected me. I stopped, keys in hand, and looked at her really looked. The woman who'd terrorized the neighborhood with 2-inch grass and flag angles now looked like any other middle-aged bully whose bluff had been called. Respect isn't power, Karen. It's fear wearing a cardigan. And fear always leaves a paper trail. She laughed, that same brittle sound Jessica had made on the phone. You'll see. One day, they'll remember me as the one who kept things perfect. No, I said, unlocking my car. They'll remember you as the cautionary tale. The HOA Karen who thought the rules didn't apply to her. And they'll thank the woman who proved they do. She stood there under the streetlight as I drove away, a small figure in pastel shrinking in my rearview mirror. The empire was gone. The roses in my yard were blooming brighter than ever. 6 months later, Sunridge Estates looked almost the same on the surface. Lawns still green, houses still beige, flags still at the correct 45-degree angle. But underneath, the air was lighter. Residents smiled at each other without glancing over their shoulders. Kids played in yards without fear of a clipboard-wielding enforcer. And I sat in the president's chair at every meeting, gavel in hand, making sure every decision came with receipts. Karen's house finally sold to a young couple from Chicago who had no idea about the scandal. They planted wildflowers, the kind that definitely violated the old handbook. I approved the variance the same day they moved in. New era, I told them with a genuine smile. As long as it doesn't affect drainage, plant whatever makes you happy. The DA's case moved forward quietly. Karen settled out of court, paid back every dime plus penalties, avoided jail, but lost her license to serve on any HOA board in the state. Last I heard, she'd moved to Florida, probably starting a new kingdom of pastel tyranny somewhere with looser enforcement. Good luck to them. I kept the original $480 invoice. Not framed, I'm not that dramatic. Just laminated and tucked in my desk drawer as a reminder. Every time I opened it, I saw the doctored line item, the second name, the laugh that had started it all. It wasn't a trophy. It was proof that even the smallest lie, when left unchecked, grows into a monster wearing pearls. One Tuesday evening I was on my porch, roses still thriving, when Jessica Howell's number popped up on my phone. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Her voice was smaller now. Laura, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know the full extent. She told me it was all above board, that you were the problem. I sipped my wine, watching the sunset paint the cul-de-sac gold. We all make choices. Jessica, some of us just make better ones when the numbers finally talk. She laughed, not the intimate one from the phone call, but a tired, defeated sound. You really did it. Took down the whole thing with one invoice. No, I corrected gently. I just reconciled the data. The rest was gravity. We hung up without goodbyes. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. The account was closed. The project complete. The neighborhood threw a block party that summer. First one in years without Karen's approved activities only list. I stood at the grill, flipping burgers, residents laughing around me, kids running through sprinklers that weren't perfectly timed. Someone raised a toast. To Laura, the woman who made HOA Homeowners actually okay. I raised my glass, the ice clinking like tiny bells of justice. The laughter that followed wasn't bitter or triumphant. It was light, free, the sound of a community that had finally stopped measuring grass and started measuring decency. A year to the day after that first $480 invoice landed in my mailbox, I stood at the community mailbox again, same spot where Karen had once cornered me with her golf cart and her lies. This time the envelope was different. Official HOA letterhead, my own signature at the bottom. Annual compliance review, all clear. No fines. No upgrades. Just a simple thank you note from the board for another year of transparent leadership. I smiled, tucked it under my arm, and walked home past the wildflower garden the new neighbors had planted. The roses in my yard had spread, a riot of red that would have given old Karen an aneurysm. I didn't trim them to regulation height. I let them grow wild and beautiful, a living reminder that perfection is overrated and power is temporary. That night, I made one final call. Not to Evergreen, not to the DA, to the old management company line that Jessica had once answered. A new voice picked up. Young, professional, no secrets in the tone. Sunridge HOA Management. How may I assist you? I leaned back on my porch swing, Wine in hand, city lights twinkling in the distance beyond the gates. Just checking on a past transaction, I said. Invoice 7742B. Any record under Whitaker? The keyboard clicked. I'm sorry, ma'am. No active records under that name. All associated files were archived and closed per board directive last year. I closed my eyes. The last knot of tension I hadn't even known I was carrying finally dissolved. Good, I whispered. Excuse me. Nothing. Thank you for your help. I ended the call and set the phone down. The neighborhood was quiet in the best way. No clipboard shadows, no whispered threats, just the soft hum of normal life. Kids laughing a few houses down. Someone's sprinkler ticking perfectly on schedule because they chose to, not because they were forced. I looked at the roses glowing under the porch light and laughed. A real laugh, light and unburdened, the kind I hadn't heard from myself in years. Not the receptionist's intimate chuckle. Not Karen's brutal defense. Just mine. The sound of a woman who had taken the smallest lie, followed the paper trail, and turned it into freedom for everyone. The HOA Karen who thought she owned the neighborhood had learned the hardest lesson of all. Every empire built on lies eventually gets audited. And when the numbers talk, even the queen in pearls has to listen. The end.